Hi everyone, how are you doing? Today we're in week 5 of the course. In week 5 of microeconomics will be the final week, and it's going to be encompassing a lot of different course topics. And you have your final paper that's very important in the course. So really focus on that final paper and what the requirements are, and we're going to go over that later on. But for the final week, we're going to be reading chapters 12, 13, 14, and 15. This is going to be dealing with more income distribution and international trade. For this week is the final week that focuses on market failure and the role of public policy in our economy. Market failure happens when a free market gives rise to too many or too few resources being directed towards a specific form of an activity. Government basically has two basic ways of regulating businesses, through economics and through social regulation. Now, when we look at private goods, they're subject to the principle of rival consumption. Examples of rival or public goods are like hamburgers, which means that only one person's consumption of such a good reduces the amount available for another person to consume. Public goods, on the other hand, can be consumed by many people at the same time without any alternatives or restrictions on quality or quantity. Additionally, this week, we're going to look at developing countries and the idea of poverty, inequality, and income redistribution. Now, some of the issues with poverty stem from technology, education, and even government interaction. So poverty, income distribution is a big deal that we focus on this week. And looking at a key to the standard of living, which is a way that we can regulate poverty, we can see the importance of increased productivity and how important it is for a nation to be active in investments, educational support, and training programs. Now, for this week, you're going to be looking at government failure in discussion board number 1. Now, should the government intervene in every case in which an externality exists? So focus on an externality. Pollution, education, secondhand smoking, smog. Focus on all these components of an externality. Should the government get involved or not? What happens if they didn't get involved? Would the market work without the externality, or with the externality, I should say? Which situations might it be better not to intervene for the government? So make for sure in your initial post that you focus on your in-text citation and a reference that is in APA formatting. Now, with your guided responses, review the discussion board post to your classmates. Do you agree or disagree with the reasons why government should intervene? Respond to at least 2 classmates and compare and contrast your posts and comments on their rationales. The next discussion board is going to be looking at tariffs and quotas. Who gains and who loses from a tariff? How do the effects of a tariff differ from the effects of a quota? So a tariff is a tax on an imported good, whereas a quota is a limit on the amount that can be brought into the economy. Now, if you were a small country, what would you rather utilize? Would you rather have a tariff which has government revenue coming in, or would you rather utilize a quota? Which one's better for domestic production and producers? And again, make sure to focus on your initial post having at least a in-text citation and a reference that's in APA formatting. And in your guided responses, review the discussion board posts of your classmates, note their analysis of who gains and who loses from a tariff, respond to at least 2 of your classmates, compare the classmates' analysis on using tariffs versus quotas by comparing them to your own. Which is better? And really try to go into that analysis. On the last part, we're going to be focused on the final paper. In the final paper, it's going to be an 8 to 10 page paper that's going to be looking at the various market structures. And what you do in this paper is you're going to try to provide a real-life example of each market and respond to the questions for each of the market structures. So first question, and I would recommend putting subheadings in your paper. So question number 1 deals with the barriers to entry. Look at the barriers and put those in your paper. How does the high barriers affect entry into a market? So now, when you look at each of the market structures, barriers are the potential problems to get into a market, like the sunk costs to enter a market. How do the barriers affect competition? Now, number 2, are competitive pressures present in markets with high barriers? So if there's high barriers to entry into a market, is there any competition in the market? Is there any firms competing at all? That's a good question to look at. Number 3, describe which market structure you would prefer selling products in, and explain why you support the answers, relating them to the characteristics of the market. Number 4, describe which products you'd prefer buying the products in, and relate it to the market characteristics. So on number 2, you're looking to find the market where you can sell it at the highest price. And number 4, you're looking at where you can buy it at the lowest price. But you always want to go back to the characteristics of that market and explain why you would want to focus on that specific one. Relate to the market characteristics. Number 5, how does the government affect product pricing in each of the market structures? So look at monopolies, oligopoly, perfect competition, and monopolistic competition, and think about how the government will influence each of those market structures. And maybe if you look at the example that you provide with each of the markets, you can put that in your analysis. For example, with monopolies, government regulates monopolies. So given that they regulate monopolies, governments are going to have a harder time controlling the price that's being charged because there's no competition that exists. And the last thing is, how does international trade affect each market structure? So you want to look at market structures, and you want to look at how potential competition from outside the U.S. is going to affect the various market structures and pricing, basically. And that'll probably go back to the barriers to entry in the market and how much competition actually exists. In your paper, you want to focus on 8 to 10 pages. You want to make sure that you have at least the APA formatted title page, reference page, and in-text citations in your work. It's very important to focus on. Also, make sure to focus on your subheadings as well. And the subheadings are key because they're going to denote what we're looking at in your actual paper. If you have any questions, as always, make sure to send them through email to me, as I'm always willing to help. And also make sure to get that paper submitted by Monday night at 11:55. I look forward to your work on your paper, and I wish you all the best. And if you have any questions, just let me know.